Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today we're going to be going over the 1984 comic book classic Swamp Thing Annual number 2, but we're actually going to be looking at the Essential Vertigo issue, which is actually black and white compared to the color version, and we're going to be going through the differences as much as I can tell and stuff. It's a lot of stuff to go through. I may not make it all the way through. I might have to finish on Friday, which I'm doing the three video episodes, weekly episodes. So I may get into that, and I may get halfway in and be like, I got to finish tomorrow, I guess. Especially if my throat doesn't cooperate. It hasn't been working so well with me lately, but I want to show you some of my stuff first. This is Mutandis, and I'm showing you the first issue of Mutandis because the newest issue of Mutandis is out right now. You can get it at my website, alexanderturbin.com. But these are the other issues. This is Mutandis number 2. This is from 1992 or 93 or whatever. This is a reprint of the first issue. I do have older copies of the original, but not many. I only have 2 or 3. And this is a reprint of number 3, and I only have 1 of those. And this is a reprint of Random Access number 1 and 2, which is the Mutandis stories from Random Access number 1 and 2. And this, which I made a couple of years ago, Mutandis Regeneratus. I turned this into a number 1, but I'm going back to the original numbering, and this is actually number 5. And so the newest issue is Mutandis number 6. And like I said, you can get this at alexanderturbin.com. It's only, like I said, it's only $2.50. All of the issues are pretty cheap, except for maybe number 2. $2.99 for Mutandis number 5, or number 1, whichever you want to say, and $2.99. I'm not sure why I put $2.50, but I like that. I like that price for Mutandis number 6. So Mutandis number 6 is $2.50. The first half was already introduced in Random Access. So the first 10 pages have already been printed in Random Access, so you may have seen them. And it also has an introduction letter from Dave Worcester, who is the original writer for Mutandis back in the 90s. And he and I both wrote this copy here, number 6. And I just changed a few things because I wanted the story to go in a specific direction. And pages 13 and 14 are inked by Thomas Ahern. And he adds a terrific, fantastic flair. I wish he could have done more, but he just didn't have time. So these are the new pages and the resolution of one of the story arcs. Well, it's not really resolution because there's still a lot to go. And like I said, it's more of an introduction from the first page from Dave and alexanderturbin.com. And on the back is a little advertisement intro to JK Papers, which shows you all of the stuff that he's produced and printed so far. So if you like this kind of stuff, this power comics, Mutandis, craziness, check out alexanderturbin.com. Or if you want to support my videos, that's a good way to do it until I can figure out a way to get part of the members program going. So like I said, we're going to be looking at Swamp Thing, Essential Vertigo Swamp Thing, but it's actually a reprint of Swamp Thing Annual number 2, written by Alan Moore, art by Steve Bissette and John Totleben. And like I said, it's in black and white, the reprint. So the colors are gone. And that's not always a great thing because the colors are really fascinating and really great in this issue. And the colorist is Tatjana Wood, and she does a really fantastic job in the coloring of Swamp Thing. And I am really very torn as to what I like better. It's a crappy old copy, so it's got some spine bend and stuff like that, this is pretty good. I didn't look up the prices for this, but this is mint copy is like $30-$40. A crappy copy like this probably run you maybe $20 or so. I think they consider this the introduction of the Justice League Dark. I'm not sure. There's another issue where they actually have John Constantine too. that might actually be the first Justice League Dark. I think though that this is considered it. So let's get into it. I'm not going to break it down into art and or the story and then the writing and then the art, because this is Alan Moore, and he is possibly the greatest comic book writer of all time, in my humble opinion. He's just so creative and articulate, and he just, for being a comic book writer, which I guess he's an artist too, so that kind of translates into his writing and his comic book writing in particular. But he is very articulate, like I said, and very like all of his scripts are super detailed, and his writing is super detailed. And to me, he's the greatest comic book writer of all time. And I think a lot of people probably agree. And it's just, this is an interesting thing to look at the color version versus the black and white version and see what you guys think. And if you like the black and white version better or the color version better, like I said, there's definitely some really great points of the color, and I'm going to definitely try to highlight those and point them out. And hopefully you can really see it well in the camera and stuff, because some of the detail in the color work is really fantastic. I kind of wish that they had done a third issue or third copy where the colors were a little bit more like there's some of the registration marks are off, and like they could have just fixed up the color work and maybe gone in and done some blending and stuff like that. Actually gotten Tatjana, if she's still alive or whatever, see if she could keep going with this. I don't know if she's the original colorist for Swamp Thing. I'm going to have to look at all my different old Swamp Things, which I don't have as many as I thought. I think I sold a bunch of copies. But so I'm going to get some more, but I'm going to get reprints. I want to get the trade paperbacks and graphic novels and stuff, which I do have the first run of Alan Moore's work in trade paperback. So I don't have that. I think the earliest I have is like, I don't know, 2 or 3 issues after he started. But it's always great to have the originals as well. So anyway, let's get into the story, and we'll just kind of talk about the art and the writing as we go along. I wish that I was one of those people that just read the whole comic in the episode, but I just can't do that because it takes too long. Yeah, we would be here for 3 or 4 hours just looking at this one comic, and I just really can't do that, especially the amount of detail that Alan Moore puts into his writing. So we have somebody picking up a flower, and it is Swamp Thing. If you don't know, I guess I'll go through a little bit of a backstory if you guys haven't read Swamp Thing, which shame on you, because this is one of the most fantastic stories, comics, written word, written and drawn thing ever to come across the world. It is really fantastic, and it may be one of my, it's top 5, easy. It's top 5 comic, top 5 writer, top 5 artists. It's really fantastic. And one of the things that I really wanted to kind of show was, first, I'll get this out of the way so I can get my random access out of the way here. I went to the Joe Kubert School for Comic and Graphic Art back in the 90s. And Steve Bissette and John Totleben both were original students of Joe Kubert's back in the 70s. So I guess he would have them, there were like 5 or 6 of them, and they lived together, and they would study under him, and he would give them assignments and blah, 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 and stuff like that. And it's what I find, though, is very unusual that if you break down their art, if you really look at some of the really minute details in the way they use brush strokes, in the way they have their line work, it very much harkens to Joe Kubert himself, which makes total sense. He's their teacher. They idolize him. They want to emulate whatever he does, and that is totally fine and totally cool. I think his sons, Adam and Andy, both draw pretty much they're identical to Joe Kubert as far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, he knew taught them. Obviously, their whole lives were all about drawing and stuff, and he must have gave them lessons nonstop. At the dinner table, whatever, there must be like drawing, and he's like, no, not like that, like this, and so just basically the way that their ink work is pronounced, and the way they're moving flowingly and stuff like that, and especially this little tiny almost etching work that John Totleben does and Steve Bissette do is just really kind of amazing. And I noticed that I did this back in the late 90s or early mid 90s, something like that. And I just reprinted it last few years and added color. But I noticed that my line work here is very similar to, I'm not going to compare it to myself to these guys because they're masters, but the line work that I was taught to do is very kind of a similar style and a similar way that they did, especially in these panels here. Then the other ones are a little bit more off because, I've used different materials and different inking things and stuff like that. And so I've kind of gotten away a little bit more than some of these guys. They just kept going with their style, which is fantastic. I'm not complaining about that at all. It's amazing. So I just thought it was kind of funny that, you get information passed down from student to, from teacher to student, from teacher to student, from teacher to student. And like a lot of the teachers that were a lot of the teachers that were teaching at Q*berts when I went there were also students of Q*berts and of I don't know if they were Steve Bissette and John Totleben were teachers there at Q*berts. I think they were. I think at a certain amount of time, but there were also plenty of other artists that were they became. After they were students, they became teachers. So I'm already rambling a little bit, and so trying to get through this in an amount of time where I don't have to break it into 3 videos. But anyway, Swamp Thing is grabbing this flower. I have to go back. I have to stop again and give you a little bit of backstory about Swamp Thing and Arcane and stuff. Arcane is his arch nemesis. He has a niece called Abby, and the Swamp Thing, after he realized that he was not Alec Holland, but he was actually a plant kind of creature, strictly on its own, he kind of went crazy, and he just kind of melted away, and he was going to kill himself or whatever. And she kind of brought him back from the dead, just by being in love with him. They had this connection. They were in love and all of this stuff. And so she kind of brought him back from the dead, and they defeated Arcane in one of the previous issues. And with his dying breath, I guess, I don't know, somehow using magic or whatever, he casts her soul into hell. So this whole issue is about Swamp Thing traveling to hell to try to find Abby. Is her last name Arcane? I think it's Abby Arcane's, her soul, and bring it back to the world. So it's starting out with him kind of just mulling things over, and he picks this flower, which is a theme throughout the whole thing. And he's kind of just deciding what he's going to do and how he's going to get her soul back from hell. And the coloring is really good, like I said, but for the first page, it's no big deal. I like the black and white better. You can really see the line work and the intricate details and the textures. I love the crazy amount of textures, and the flowing water and the flowing flowers and the fantastic ink work and line work on the face of Abby. And it's just, it all comes together. And also another one of the great things about Swamp Thing is they really broke the norms of comic book panels, and they just were like, look at these. They're not parallel. They're open borders. They're basically breaking all of the rules that everybody had known in comic books until that time, and they just are making their own rules, and they're making a new world, and it's really fantastic. It's one of the fantastic things about it. So we're going to compare and contrast as best we can. I guess I'll have to. This has the advertisements in it, and this doesn't have any advertisements. So hopefully I'll be able to kind of keep them together so we can compare and contrast. Some of the problem with the black and white is that a lot of it runs together. So having color really can kind of create a contrast and create a uniformity in the characters, and kind of differentiate between the what is the noodly little great line work. It is really great and fantastic. Obviously, we know that, but it's also it's a little busy. It's a little busy, and the black and white really shows that busyness. And the color, though, really kind of breaks it up. It gives it a little bit more depth. They've added this purple, which brings it to the forefront, and she's got this yellow dress on, which really kind of glows up. And it's comparing it to the muted greens and the browns in Swamp Thing. It's frankly, I'm preferring the color version. Let me know. I really, really want to know what you guys think, whether you like the black and white version or the color version better, because I truly, I'm torn in a lot of places, but for the most part, I think I like the color version a little bit better. So this is basically just him deciding what he's going to do. And then the next page is him deciding how he's going to do it. And he harkens back to when he first found out that he was a plant person and not Alec Holland. Like I said, he just kind of gave up life, and he just kind of oozed back into the world, into the death, into, I don't know what you call it, into the afterlife or whatever. And so he decides to do that back again, and he figures, because he's talking about how death is the world of flesh, and in order to get to hell or to heaven or wherever, he has to have had flesh at one point, and he didn't. So because he's an earth elemental, he's not really realizing yet that he's an earth elemental. He just thinks he's a swampy creature. But he's realizing that that's what he has to do, and so he has to ooze back into the afterlife by just kind of releasing his body and getting all of that stuff, which is the next couple panels where he realizes that. One of the great things that I love about the color is the eyes on Swamp Thing. The yellow and then the red, it really casts a great it makes it look so different. And also the word balloons are different colors, and that is a fantastic thing, because this is the Swamp Thing thinking in this bright yellow, and you would think that really isn't that big of a deal, but it's like the clearest thing on the page. It's the most prominent thing on the page, so it's very bright in your face. So it's not trying to hide his thoughts. His thoughts are in the forefront, and the actual images are in the background. So that's really what the artist and the creator, Alan Moore, had in mind. I don't know how much input Steve Bissette and Totleben had on the colorist. I think Cartoonist Kayfabe goes through an artist's edition of the Swamp Things, and so you could check out those, because I think they have a lot more information than I do about a lot of this stuff. Whether or not they had influence on the colorist or anything like that, and actually the process. They would actually talk about the process of how they did some of these different things, like it's just the color with no inking or anything like that to hold it in, and they would really know how they did that and how they printed it and stuff like that. So I would look back at some of those Cartoonist Kayfabe episodes, really. So he's just kind of deciding to leave his body and leave his life, and he's laying down, and really that's just oozes, seeps away. His life just seeps away into the nether and into death. And this is probably the first time that I was like, yeah, the color really had to be in the comic to really make it as great as it is. The black and white, I still would have thought it's great. I still think it's great. But this it really is amazing. This whole textual detail stuff. You got to think that Bissette and Totleben had some sort of influence and had maybe directed the colorists on what they wanted. I can only imagine, because that's just, it's too much work for the colorist to be like, I'm just going to add these fossils and all these weird different patterns and designs and stuff. They must have had some kind of direction from both Alan Moore and the artist, because I think that Alan Moore, he really had a heavy influence on how the art was done. I can only assume. So this is Swamp Thing, and he's seeping into the afterlife, and he goes through this process of leaving his body behind, leaving his mind behind, leaving his conscious behind. And yet here's more of this fantastic color work. It's really nice. This black and white, really great. But this color work, it's got this really excellent rendering stuff. She's rendering with the color, which is really fantastic, especially like this oozing and blue, and it's like this ectoplasmic thing, and this brightness. He's seeing the brightness of death, and he's going to it. You know, you don't want to go to the bright light, but he is, and it kind of adds to the depth and the emotion of going into the afterlife. Whereas it's got some real heavy line work, which is great, and it's got some real light clouds and shading and stuff like that, which is fantastic. But I really like the brightness and the contrast of the afterlife and stuff. And then, like I said, there's even more of that color work here. The black and white, it's really rendered, really intricately detailed, lots of texture, lots of emotion. They're really adding a lot of emotion and stuff. And he's going from a part of death, a part of the afterlife, from one place to another. This is very much reminds me of Silent Hill 2, because out of the mist and out of the fog comes this woman, and she's looking for her son. And I guess this is the just dead, the very newly dead. They were in a car accident, and she's crying, and she's looking for her son. And so again, I chose this book because I've been wanting to do an Alan Moore thing, which I'm going to do all the Alan Moore stuff too. So don't even concern yourself on that. Every little bit of Alan Moore I think I have almost all of his stuff. I'm missing a couple of things, but I'll probably pick those up eventually. But everything else I have, just about every issue of every comic that he ever did, except I don't have a lot of these Swamp Things, some of them anyway. So look at this intricate line work and detail and brush work. This is all the brush. This is all with a pen, not a pen, but with a brush, which is just friggin' insanely crazy, wonderful, amazing. But we're not on this page yet. We're still on this page. The greens and the browns really highlight, and the oranges really highlight the differences in everything. That's probably the biggest thing that it differentiates between the characters and stuff, because there's so much line work, so much interesting line work, that it's kind of it's hard for your eye to rest on one spot long enough to kind of take a breath. Sometimes your eye has to take a breath and focus in on what they're saying, what they're doing, and like you're reading, because when you're reading a comic, you're taking in all of this information, and your brain has to kind of sort it out and assimilate it and kind of maximize the usage of your eyes and your brains. And so doing that with the lettering really highlights what they want you to do first, which is they want you to read this stuff, and then they kind of want you to take in all of the different colors and hues, and also the line work and all of this, the soft textures and everything. And she's got regular white word balloons, which is fantastic. And so she's lost her son, and she's trying to find him. And the Swamp Thing really has no clue what's going on, and he's just trying to do his best to help the girl. And the son finally catches up with her, and he's like, Mom, we can move on to the next phase of our death, and they move on to the afterlife or whatever that and Swamp Thing is very confused. He's like, come back, where is this place? He doesn't know where this is. So that's when Dead Man shows up, and he's actually he's not a caretaker, but he's has a lot to do with the realm of the dead, and he's a spirit that goes into people's bodies in the waking world and the real world, and can kind of because he was a detective, he was a police detective, I think, and so he solves murders and stuff like that. And they've met a few times, but he's never actually seen Dead Man, so he's kind of surprised by him. So they take off, and Dead Man is like, he explains it. He's like, they're moving on to their next place where they're supposed to be, into heaven or whatever. And they just kind of, Dead Man doesn't really understand why he's there. He knows who he's looking for, but he's like, what the heck's going on? And like, when did you die? And Swamp Thing is kind of explains to him that he hasn't died, and that he's looking for Abby Arcane, uh, and that's what he's doing there. That's what he's trying to accomplish by being killing himself, sacrificing his own life to try to find her, to try to get her back from hell. And he's like, okay, buddy, I'll help you out. So then we go to the next page, and they're just kind of talking. Again, I really love the different colors, word balloons for Swamp Thing, and it's he's talking. It's a different type of word balloon than when he's thinking. So it's really all of these minute details are really part of why this is such a great comic book. And like I said, I'm going to go through all of Alan Moore's stuff. I'm going to probably go through more Swamp Things, and there's a whole ton of things to say about both the stories and the writing, and the nuances about the writing, because Alan Moore always harkens back to, he'll have a foreshadowing event, and then he will play with it. He will like he'll cast it aside kind of, and then bring it back, but it might be manipulated in a different way. Like when Dead Man's talking about how he used to know Swamp Thing, and he didn't really realize it because he never actually saw him, and it's just like lots of different things are kind of interweaving together. They He explains, Swamp Thing explains what he's doing. He's trying to find Abby, and Dead Man's like, hey, okay, whatever. You're not supposed to be here, but I'll help you out as much as I can, because he's a good guy. So they go through this part of the newly dead. They're going closer to the truly dead, and there's these poltergeists, which are just these giant dead creatures, and he says, don't disturb them, because Swamp Thing, through all of these travels through the dead and through heaven and hell and all that stuff, he meets these different guides, and they all have different powers, and they all have different interactions with the afterlife and death and hell and heaven and everything like that. So really, this is kind of the forming of the Justice League Dark, which is great thing, because all of these characters are really fantastic. But then here's this poltergeist again. Look at this nice pink. It really gives some really great separation, and it gives some great detail, and adds to the ambiance. It adds to the it just adds to the whole texture and the whole completion of the comic book. I feel like the black and white is not complete, and really the color is as complete as it is. The printing process at the time made it a little difficult to be truly complete. If they went back and did some great coloring like this here, they did some blending and stuff, and added maybe some different tones of blue, that would really add to the completeness of the book. But here, there's like these hints of pink, which is, you can feel the movement, and the spirits is what they are. There's the spirits, which is great. Like looks like a human woman, in this in her screaming or whatever, but you can't hear it. And Dead Man is actually saying that we're in like this ectoplasmic kind of realm in the afterlife, where things are just kind of made up, and everything is just kind of moves around and stuff, which is really fantastic, both with the line work and with the color work. I don't know what this is. This is kind of funky, both the color and the black and white version. But we're gonna let that go because it's Swamp Thing. But I love this fantastic pink and the blues, and it's got such a great contrast with the blue and the pink. And this little noodly, it almost looks like a brain. It's really fantastic. And then what you have towards the end of this Dead Man stint, you have them crossing over into another part of heaven. And at this point, I think that's when, maybe not, the panel work here, we've got to address the panel work maybe first. Is it supposed to be some sort of magical symbol that that Alan Moore placed in the comic, or is it just it's moving all of your eye to this? You've got this basic shape here, which is not parallel. It's not a box. It's not square or anything. It's kind of moving this way, where they're looking back at the poltergeist and stuff. So they're moving off into this direction. And here is they do it with the line work here, where all of the line work they're looking back, but they're also moving this way. And you've got the blues, but it's the blue that really separates it's this darker blue from this lighter blue. And they're looking back at their past and what they've seen, but they're also looking into the next panels, and this blue siphons off into these other panels and creates this vortex of where you're supposed to look and what you're supposed to see, and the way that it goes. And this whole highlighting, which they do it here in the line work, but adding the light blue and the dark blue just adds a little bit more contrast. And that's like a little explosion of, that's the end of where they previously were. And this is like an intro or a doorway into what they're going to be going into next. And there's just this explosion of light. And as much as I love the line work here, you just don't have that explosion of light, which I tried to do this bright light because in two of my issues, where the background is all desert, it's all heat, and I just wanted this super bright yellow heat. And so the whole issue is just this like agonizing white light. And that's basically what this is it's an agonizing white light that's just drawing you into the next realm of the dead. And so we have an advertisement here. And then he can almost not see. He can't really focus on anything. And so Dead Man's like, you're going into the next realm. And they actually talk about God, which I want to talk about this briefly because, I mean, the video is getting a little bit long and we're going to cut it off pretty much here. But one of the things that I want to talk about is they talk about God, and Alan Moore, my holy grail of any comic book thing ever that I ever wanted, they had in an issue of Swamp Thing where Swamp Thing meets Jesus, and I think he is on the cross and they're talking and stuff like that. And the editor and DC decided that it was too much. It was too controversial and stuff like that. So even here, they talk about God, and they're kind of just discussing who he or she is. And Dead Man says that it's a she, that it's Ramakrishna. And this is just the very beginning of Alan Moore kind of explaining his own feelings about the metaphysical and about God and everything. I'm going to go into Prometheus, where that is just a comic book, that every issue is just an intricate description of Alan Moore's feelings on religion and magic and all of this other stuff. There's some really fantastic stuff, obviously, in Prometheus. But they discuss about God. Dead Man says it's a she, and Swamp Thing is just like, what? That's crazy. And finally, they cross over into this newest part of Death, and it's the Phantom Stranger, and that's where we're going to leave it now. I want to know what you guys think about the black and white and the color, and I am going to continue this on Friday, and hopefully you'll come back for that. I was going to do more of those stories of the that other book, the Lunatic Binge, and I'll just get back to that in a little bit, because I just kind of I wanted to break up the monotony a little bit, and I wanted to read some Alan Moore Swamp Thing stuff. So there you go. There's my excuse. I don't really need an excuse to want to read Alan Moore Swamp Thing stuff, but there it is. So let me know what you guys think about the color. Do you think that the color ruins the black and white, and that the black and white is just the superior book, or is the color more your style? There's like this page here, I'm okay with no color here. This black and white, it's really fantastic, and I would be okay with no color. But some of those other panels, some of those other pages, the black and white just really the color just really makes it pop, and it really truly makes it into the finished product that I really love and enjoy. So we're at page 11. They're meeting the Phantom Stranger, and that's where we're going to leave it. And thank you guys for watching. And I'm going to be going over the rest of this on Friday. And I hope you join me for that, this journey into Alan Moore's psyche. So yeah, if you're new to the channel, I usually do older 90s, 80s, 90s black and white indie comics, but I also love Marvel and DC and more of their lesser known stuff, and also their greatly known stuff. So if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification, and all of that cool stuff. And yeah, I will see you guys next time, and thanks for watching, and keep on creating.